Okay, can you guys hear me now? I think that should have fixed the problem. Yeah. I think the update just like disabled my headset again. Awesome. There we go. There's quite a little bit of a delay on the stream. Woo. We love it when you can hear me. Otherwise, the whole thing would be pointless. The burb. Okay, we've given people a few minutes. And I'm sure people may come in as we're doing this. There are probably a few people watching YouTube. We know not everyone is free to hop into Discord at all hours of the day, so. And thank you for the love for the headset. From the stream. I cannot remember which kind it is anymore. All I know is it glows rainbow. Like on the side. It glows rainbow and it matches my keyboard. Okay. So, welcome everyone to the Vox community meeting. We haven't had one in a couple of months. There was some it's pretty much, we like to give it a rest at the holiday time, and then January's was pushed due to time constraints and a general lack of any information to tell you guys, honestly. I don't anticipate this one being a really big or long meeting, but if you guys do have any questions that you want to ask about the server, our progress, and any of that, you can ask them in the meeting questions channel under the community meeting section in our Discord. We will answer questions from there. Generally, for anyone watching on stream, I generally only answer questions from the stream relating to the stream itself. For Vox-related questions, you do have to ask in the Discord. I also have already opened the channel, so feel free to add your questions there if you have any. I'm going to go through a couple of little general updates and the one pre-submitted question we had to start. And as always, thank you guys for being here. So, our RPG project. It's pretty much the big thing most people want to know about. It is still completely underway. All of the relevant updates we've given you, the last meeting, we did cover that we plan to release the content in a chapter structure. So there'll be, chapter 1, 2, 3, and those will involve separate but still tied together stories throughout. So it very similar to how a lot of RPGs do kind of content in chapters, especially like online ones. I know like World of Warcraft did like content release kind of similar to that. I know Final Fantasy just kind of releases similar to that, usually with DLC. However, we're not going to be making you pay for the DLC in this particular instance, which is always good. But obviously, we have a small team, so there have been some delays in our progress, the general amount that you would kind of expect because we're human, we have lives, or volunteers, and we have a small team. So like all of that kind of ties into things. And obviously with December is a generally large holiday season, and then I don't know about anybody else, but it feels like after the new year, life likes to kick just about everybody in the teeth, so January is not always a comfortable experience either. If anyone else has been experiencing a lot of stuff this past January, I apologize, and I hope everyone starts to have a much better year. It's not been great for me, but personal things aside, our team is small, very hardworking, but still small, and there's a number of different tasks involved in this project that sometimes also require other steps to be completed first. And when there's a delay at one step of the process, it obviously can delay other pieces of the progress or other steps. And so it can have kind of a, crescendo effect or domino effect for those not musically inclined. So sometimes that can pile up, and we're still making progress. We're still excited and looking forward to the progress, but obviously, most people understand that, especially with a smaller team, you're gonna end up sometimes with delays. So I just wanted to cover that in case people were wondering more of when. We don't have an exact date yet. We are working very hard on getting content to release to you guys, though, because we're very excited for stuff. So that all said, if anyone would like to see this project get off the ground too, and has any interest in joining the team, we are, as always, open to staff applications. Currently, there's a particular need for architects, and there's always a need for GMs. So if you have any interest, especially in those areas, don't hesitate to apply. Just because we're in the middle of this project does not mean we can't use more hands.
Especially if you have experience.
And with regards to the architects and the build team in specific, we had 2 others on our team who have had to leave staff for their own, personal reasons. I'm not going to get into why they've left, but people have lives, and life is always more important than a game. I will never deny someone or be mad at someone for dealing with their stuff over a game. But if you have any interest in building, either if you're a grand scale builder or you love decorating or anything of that note, because we all play Minecraft. Some of us love to build. Some of us turn on easy mode or peaceful mode because we don't want to deal with monsters. We just want to build. So if you do have any interest in architect at all, feel free to apply. If you have any interest in GMs, CM, GM's doing more technical plugin related stuff and CM's doing writing stuff, feel free to apply. I will say the disciplinary team is currently not having a ton to do, but we're not against applications for every level. But particularly if you want to help see the project take off and you do have any experience and want to help, please do not hesitate. I just want to make sure that everybody knows, just because we're in the middle of this project does not mean you can't apply, jump in, and try to help. So to that end, moving on. As always, please keep your eye. I can words. Please keep your eyes on our Discord for announcements, and feel free to get the updates roll if you want to stay up to date with latest information and news. You may have noticed that there were a few spoiler pictures posted in the Discord. I do have more to show off at some point, and those will be coming periodically here and there, just little sprinkles of some progress. I will also state that any pictures that we do post are technically subject to change based on the whims of our builders. But I thought you guys would enjoy seeing at least a portion of some of the progress that goes into what we're doing, and some of the builds both in progress and completed. And stay tuned on the stream, because after I kind of go over some questions, I also have a couple of pictures I was going to show off on the stream. So you guys will get to see a couple of little pictures. Okay, so our pretty much only pre-submitted question. Gonna just start it off. Will things that I build in the current world be deleted once the next map update happens? I haven't really been playing because I don't want to lose my progress again. So, long and short answer, yes. Unfortunately, yes. The map that is currently up is intended to be temporary, and it's a place to hang out, to build, to play, to just generally enjoy playing Minecraft. Once the RPG project is ready to be launched, as in released as content to you guys, this current map will be deleted. However, I highly encourage you to still play and enjoy the current map, as the new phase of Vox is going to be an entirely different experience. So there is intended at this time to be some sort of limited capacity to build in the potential like player worlds that we've discussed before. Still not completely sure of all the details. We will let you guys know when we have more details on that. But the main focus of the map, of the project that we're working on now, is going to be telling a story through a more adventure style experience. So progress is going to also be measured differently than just a typical like vanilla survival experience, you know, where how many materials you can acquire or how many builds you have. As that space is likely to be still quite limited, there won't just be a free-range map attached to it where you can just build and run around and experience everybody else's builds either. So don't let a fear of losing progress really prevent you from enjoying what's available right now. The nature of Minecraft in general, for some people like having a really long-lasting map. Some people like having that short, okay, I'm bored with this map, let's do another one. I'm bored with this map, let's do another one. So, you know, you've got two different styles there, and you can't always accommodate everybody, but I would say that instead of being worried about losing everything you've built, you should enjoy what you can build while you can build it. So, at that point, we're done with the pre-submitted questions. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the meeting questions channel, which is open. There is also a format in there to follow on how you want your questions to be labeled. And please do not flood it with questions that are not about the server or the progress or something related to Vox. Just going to say that because I see some new faces in both YouTube and the Discord chat. So I just wanted to make sure to remind everybody, just keep it related. All right, so first question. How much influence will the community have on the project and content stuff? So, obviously, it's going to depend on when we can kind of release everything to get like first initial kind of like feedback and suggestions. Obviously, bug reports, always welcome. Absolutely always welcome. So, you know, if you find an error, if you find something not working, we are going to have some sort of system in place to report those, as, you know, we typically have. As for direct like feedback and suggestions and kind of using that to like shape future content, that is honestly part of why, not the only reason, but a nice part of why we decided to go with kind of a chapter structure as well, because we can also see what you guys really enjoy experience-wise, like as a group, and what kind of draws newer people to things, or as opposed kind of balance between like new and old, like what do people who've been here for ages really love to do, and what do people who are new really love to do, and if there's overlap, and we can kind of build on that and make sure there's experiences that everyone can enjoy. So people who like PvP may not enjoy some quests that we have, and maybe most people don't enjoy certain types of quests, and we can just not do those kinds of quests again in future chapters. So essentially the intention is to have your guys' feedback influence the product that we are putting out. We want you guys to enjoy the story as well as enjoy how you're going through it. As for things that you could do right now, you don't exactly have anything that you guys can give like super direct feedback on. Although I will say, if when we're posting some of the spoiler pictures and things of that nature, if you find something particularly like, ooh, intriguing, let us know. Comment on things that we put out, comment on updates. And if you're really unhappy about something, you can always tell us that. We are open to feedback. We are open to constructive criticism. What we are not open to is insults. So I would just want you to make sure, like, if you're upset, if you're unhappy with something, I always advise people to, like, do your best to kind of, like, calm down before reacting if you're upset. I'm not great at it, but I also try. I've learned to try to do it. I'm still not always great at it, but it's always much better if you can come to someone that you're upset with or having a disagreement with and explain why you're upset in a more calm manner, because it's a lot easier for everyone involved to stay calm that way. I am not calling anyone out here in particular. In fact, actually, I'm more calling myself out. Sometimes I don't always think clearly. The point being, if you are upset and you want to express your displeasure, there is a respectful way to do it, and a way that will do it that will incense everyone. And it's a lot harder to get people to see your point of view and to be on your side if they feel like you're just attacking someone or something. So, in other words, we are completely open to constructive criticism, but the big point there is it's got to be constructive. You've got to say, I don't like this because XYZ, or I think maybe it would look better like this, or I think this might be a better way, as opposed to, this is stupid, you need to change it. That doesn't actually actively help us. So, I just, taking a step off my soapbox there, just, treat us and everyone on the server, Discord, and the game server, the way that you also would want to be treated. Okay, I see your question, Pengu, and I'm not gonna put that into the notes, but I'll answer your question. No penguin race, sorry. I could see the potential for, if we do custom mobs, maybe adding a custom penguin. I don't know what exactly our plans are regarding pets, but I know that that is probably a feature people would love to see come back. So if we can find something that can do pets, maybe we can have a penguin pet. I will say that we have a kind of nice set of custom races planned for you guys to play and experience through, so that's a kind of tiny spoiler for you. But I also
put that in the note.
If you want, you can. Since I gave a little bit of a spoiler, but I feel like I've said that before too. But I will also say that the races at this moment are kind of intended to be released a few at a time. So you may end up, as chapters release, you may find yourself wanting to be like, oh, I want to switch to that one now. And that's perfectly fine. I did see the question there, and I saw Burb link to the staff ranks thing. So, yeah, for any specifics about the different roles as staff, you can view the staff ranks channel. It's still accurate, and I believe we did recently update it with a bit of a change on how community managers specifically work. Because that kind of got adjusted, but yeah. Okay. Yeah, not a big update meeting, honestly. But we are making progress. I don't want to give like an exact percentage or number of like the first chapter stuff, but like I will say build progress is going pretty well. We have 3 incredibly talented, very dedicated builders who are quite honestly working their butts off. I keep having to rein them in because they're making gorgeous builds that just don't fit with the chapter they're supposed to be working on. But they're doing really, really, really good work, and you guys have been able to see some of that with some of the screenshots that I've shared. For anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, if you look in the announcements channel above the community meeting post, there are some spoiler images that I've shared. I think I've done about 3 of them. Things got kind of delayed on those too. But that was more life stuff kept coming up, and Visor kept forgetting to post them. I'm trying to do better on that. Okay, a couple of questions coming in. I'm gonna... okay. Question about the current map. Would there be a chance to get a copy of it like previous maps? I know it's smaller, but it would be cool to explore people's builds. So, in theory, yes. In practice, I'm not sure if we're going to do that. It was intended to be kind of a temporary world. I also know that for the original like map downloads that Amy was able to provide, it took a while, a lot of figuring out how best to do it. And any place where you like upload stuff like that for people to download does usually still cost some degree of money depending on the file size, I think, as well. So I'm not sure if we will be doing that, but it is something that we can take under advisement that people may like to see. That's as much as I can promise on that end, but we can certainly discuss it and see. I'm gonna keep going with the questions, but while we're doing that, I am going to switch over to camera that has a slideshow of a couple of pictures, a couple little spoiler images. So if people want to check them out on the YouTube, you can see them. You know, keep it interesting while we're going. Next question. Mounts. I know on Vox there were strict limitations to mounts before on where you could spawn them, etc. Will they return, or will the limitations be relaxed? So, honestly, I have no idea at this particular moment in time. The limitations that were imposed before was due to how the plugins functioned. I'm not sure how we're going to be utilizing those again, or if we technically pets, so kind of along that vein. But the other the other thing to consider was that was technically a completely differently set up world. So in the example is like with the griffin pets that we had, the rideable, mountable griffin pets. We didn't really want people flying through dungeons, which is why they weren't allowed to be used in dungeons. I think that makes sense, obviously. So with this particular kind of adventure mode kind of style story, I'm not sure what mounts we may have available, what mounts we may allow. It may also be something that kind of comes as content releases. So example, not an actual like set thing, but an example would be if we have custom mounts, you may only acquire a horse at first for like the first chapter or two, and then maybe you get one related to the chapter. That is a different kind of mount that lets you do things in that world that you might need the mount to do. You know, my example is in Final Fantasy, you can get a flying mount, but only once you've reached a certain point in the story where you kind of need one to fly around with. That sort of thing is likely what would happen if we end up having the mounts available again. But quite frankly, we haven't actually gotten around to discussing like mounts and pets and certain what I would call more extraneous like plugins. Like they're like extra content that would be good and would be fun, but they're not necessarily completely necessary to the telling of the story. So it's sort of it's like a secondary priority. It's like on the list, but we haven't gotten there yet. So, and I'm going to stop babbling before that doesn't make any more sense anymore. I will also say that we did originally intend to do some like streams of like build progress and things of that nature. I feel like we may still try to do some maybe like videos or like time lapses or shorts or something, possibly a little bit of a building stream, but we'll have to kind of wait and see. The problem with some of the progress when it comes to like the builds is sometimes it takes longer than we think to do one build, and then I blink, turn around, and someone's built something huge and gigantic and amazing in like a night, and I'm like, you people don't sleep. But there may also be the possibility of little bits of tours. I figured pictures was also a nice kind of stopgap in between. Because we don't want to tell you all of the content either right away. You know, we want you to actually still have to explore and find stuff. Maybe I'll let Pengu make a little Easter egg somewhere. Little penguin Easter egg somewhere. Okay. If anybody has any further questions, feel free to drop them in the channel. I'm going to give it a couple minutes, but if not, I might end the stream here. It'd be nice to have a nice short one. But, yeah, there have been some delays, and the team sometimes gets smaller, and everyone has their own lives and stuff to deal with, and yeah, January and February has not been good to me personally. I hope everyone else is having a much better New Year so far. I didn't say I was going to give you full control over what you get to make, Pengu, either, just to be clear. For anyone watching this stream, you'll notice it's just 4 of our spoiler pictures, but I thought they were some of the more impressive ones that I took. Well, I mean, obviously, except for the farm. I mean, we know me. Most of you guys know me. I'm the farmer. I had to show off a farm. All right. But look at that giant tree that's on screen right now. Look at that giant tree.
People want to know that there's a farm, though.
I mean, that's true. But
it gives them something to look forward to.
As the farmer, the farm kind of just was one of those builds that like sprung up on me like overnight pretty much, and I think it's gorgeous. And the picture of the giant tree, it does not do it justice. It is giant. All right. Like, I could not fit the entire tree into one shot without showing off things I definitely didn't want to show off. Yes, a farm exists somewhere. Okay, we have one other question. So, question. Reuse any old plugins? So, I'm going to assume you're asking if we plan to. I am not entirely sure which plugins we're going to be using that we did use previously. I know that we were intending to still use the system we had been testing for classes. We have found a plugin to be able to do races. Some of the ones that we wanted to use for the new Netherite project that had become like the Valeria Haven you guys saw before the map just completely hit the bricks. That problem was due to like all of the old data and old plugins that were like barely functional clashing with the new stuff. So we still intend to try to use some of the new stuff we wanted to. I don't foresee us using any of the old plugins that were causing the issues, unless we don't really have any other choice. But at this point, without the old data kind of like bogging everything down, they might even function better. But a lot of the plugins were, even at that point, depreciated, because a lot of the plugins developers stopped supporting 1.19. Like, I remember Jin explaining it to me that usually developers will still work on some of those old stuff like for a while, and after like a couple of months, no one that was doing any of the plugins we were using or wanting to use was supporting 1.19. So we that was part of what necessitated a 1.20 move, and then everything just collapsed when they didn't all work well together. So that's kind of the long answer. The short answer is if there are plugins that we can reuse and will not cause issues, we probably will use them. I'm not going to give a list because typically we haven't really given lists of the plugins that we use, but also I don't have a complete list to give you even if I wanted to. Okay, Navy. I just gotta say, can you please stop asking questions that are only like 2 sentences long or 2 words long? I need more details. Thank you. I'm going to go to the next question. Mining. Curious how mining is going to be on launch. Is it just going to be the default normal mining like vanilla ores, or is there going to be some things like custom drops, or would we have to wait for an archaeology update for improved mining later after launch of new server? So the thing with the new server is, as we've described, it is more of an RPG style experience. We have talked about having separate player worlds for players to build in, and though we don't have all the details, I know there's been some interest in a potential like mining dimension, like a resource world. Short of those experiences, however we decide to incorporate that either into a player world situation or that, we're not exactly intending to have like mining be the main focus. The main focus is going to be kind of the adventure story. And that map and that world won't be like buildable or mineable. So the idea is to basically tell a story with the main portion of the map. I'm not going to say there won't be any mining or building. It's just we've kind of still going through trying to figure out what plugins will work best for that like self-contained player world that we've been mentioning, and we're not entirely there yet on how it's going to work and function with the rest of the server. Okay. I'm giving my note takers a couple seconds because I am very talkative and I go very fast.
Is there more than me?
I don't know. So even more reason to go slower. I'm sorry. I'm not saying there won't be any like crafting and there won't be any like different things that you can do, because the whole experience like is going to be told through like stories from like NPC characters and quests and things of that nature. So there may still be like custom drops and gear and things of that nature. We're not 100% there yet on anything that I can share with you on how we're going to have all that function. It's just there's the possibility that we might even have certain quests involving fetching different materials, and maybe there'll be designated areas you can mine in to fetch said materials. I don't really know exactly how we're going to go about doing exactly everything yet. A lot of this is kind of a trial and error process on top of that, so we kind of have to try out things. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, we have to go back to the drawing board. And the true fact of the matter is, we have to have a place to tell the story and then write out and tell the story. So, though it is possible to work on some like story matters while the builds are being made, it's kind of hard to sit down and decide absolutely everything when we don't have the builds in place to decide, oh, this is where that person will be, this is where that person will be, you know. So this is one of those kind of things that I mentioned, that other task delays and other tasks can kind of hold off other portions of the progress. So it all compounds together. There's a lot of stuff that has to be done simultaneously, and then there's a lot of stuff that sometimes you have to wait for something to be finished to work on. And I'm gonna be honest, trying to manage all of that is definitely kind of a juggling act for everyone involved, all right? Okay. Question. Will leaderboards return? Details. I remember loads of players love to beat each other on the leaderboards for each skill, job, rank thingy. So, I'm not opposed to it. I don't know of anybody who'd be ultimately opposed to it, but there is a degree of which we have to be careful with things such as leaderboards. And that is actually going back into the Minecraft EULA, which is the the portion that, not the portion, okay. My brain starts trying to think like 3 sentences ahead, and then I completely forget what I'm saying in the moment. So with regards to leaderboards, we have to be careful because of certain aspects like the Minecraft EULA. So the EULA is the rules at which servers can utilize, as well as for like monetary things also. So stuff like the e-store, how we would sell like boosts for different skills and things of that nature. When a leaderboard is involved, it becomes a very weird experience, because there's this whole thing with the EULA where you can't like offer a paid competitive edge. So if something has a competitive aspect, even if it's only in people's minds, a leaderboard counts, apparently. So the experience with dealing with leaderboards would mean, like, if we have like leaderboards for jobs, I'm not positive if we'd be able to offer like job boosts. Not that that's necessarily a like deal breaker. However, that's why we are very careful about like adding leaderboard type things at this point. I know old Vox used to have them, and that was before the EULA had become the beast it is now. So essentially, when it comes to the leaderboards, I'm not against them, but we kind of have to also judge that based on what we want to do with both the e-store and what kind of experience we want to have for the players. I'm not against people feeling competitive with each other, but we also got to make sure that we balance it right with what we're allowed to do and what will encourage the best experience for everyone. I myself, while I do feel a competitive drive, when I see, like 10 people above me on the leaderboard, I usually look and be like, nah, all right, I'll let them fight it out. I don't care that much. But I know not everyone likes that, and a lot of people really like that like drive to push themselves forward. So, well, it's definitely something to try to consider on a good balance to allow people to feel that competitive drive that they want to feel versus those that might not be as concerned with it. So I feel like I've answered your question, but really the pure matter of the answer is I'm not really sure at this time whether or not leaderboards will return, or in which capacity, or for which plugins. But still a possibility. This is what I meant when I said I'm long-winded, all right? I feel like I'm getting back into the flow of everything after we didn't have 2 months of meetings. Question: is there a possibility for evil character arcs? Details, rob the tavern, pickpocketing, or just being not a goody two-shoes. Yeah, I don't know, honestly, because I'm not... Okay. When it comes to things like evil characters in, like, RPGs and stuff like that, I'm not really the biggest fan of playing that style. However, I know lots of people do. But, the but here is not about my personal preference. The but here is that I am not sure if our quests system that we're going to be using is able to do diverging paths. And that's really the kicker. That's something we will have to play around with. Because I'm definitely not against having multiple options, multiple ways you can take a story. I'm just not sure if it's possible. And that's really the number one thing, is we are still limited by what's able to be done with the plugins that we're using, or the plugins that are available to use. So, and yes, I know you said you put that question as a joke, and I gave it a serious answer. Deal.
I removed that part of the question.
I'll be honest, half the time when I see a staff member post a question, I'm usually assuming that it might be a joke, but they are sometimes serious questions.
The next two, I'm not gonna put in the notes.
Okay, one sec. I was going through and reacting because I realized I haven't been reacting to them all. Okay, yep. The penguin class stuff has already been answered. Yeah, we don't need to put this one in the notes, but staff role for story and lore writing and ideas and things of that nature. Well, first of all, we encourage every staff member to share any suggestions they have about anything. Even if you're not, say, on the writing team and you have a suggestion for something, we try to encourage people to still share our suggestions among the team. For the actual staff role that helps with, like, writing, that would be the community manager. The sub-role of editor does more writing. There is a public relations, or PR, sub-role as well. We kind of divided the community manager role into two more distinct things, but if you're interested at all in writing and helping develop the story, that would be CM that you're looking for. Okay, question. Could we try bringing back voting on launch? Details. Could have voting translate to an in-game currency, which could also increase foot traffic. Not against the idea at all, because it's a good one. If we can get it like set up and working, it would be a really good way for people to get to start off with some sort of fund or some sort of currency to start doing stuff in the world. And you're right, it could definitely be a good way to like advertise and get the foot traffic into the server, because that is also a decent sized concern. I'm not sure if we'll have it working on launch, but I'm definitely not against it. It's definitely a really good idea. And now I have to add that to the list. So Tay, you are in charge of reminding me about that, right? You have asked the question. You are now in charge of reminding me.
I think voting specifically wouldn't be too hard, but it would be a matter of if we're able to add prizes for voting, because that's another issue altogether.
Yeah, it may also depend on how a plugin for it works or how it integrates depending on where we do it. Because in the old system, we had a just completely like we had a plugin that let us just basically have like the gold translate to a number, and it gave you that like gold, that amount of gold. But I'm not sure if that'll work with the custom currencies we had planned to use. And if we still use those, I'm not sure if it'll actually be able to use those, or if it'll have to use some sort of like digital bank system. Basically, there's a lot to like double check on and see what'll work. But if doable, it's a great idea. Honestly, I like the orange names. I wasn't against the cyan color we had before, but since Brad wants to be blue, orange works for me. And it is much...
I like my yellow.
My name will be red at some point. In some capacity, it's going to be red. I don't care if I have to change it myself. But yeah, the orange looked nice. It's not too glaring, and it's not too... It doesn't look too much like any other color that we have role color-wise, especially when we adjusted the admin color. So, all right. Question. How are we in terms of finances? Details? I have absolutely no earthly idea. I'm going to be completely honest.
That, 'cause we don't know.
pure fact of the matter is, Brad is the one in charge of the finances, and it's still a good question to ask, though. I'm not against, like, okay, yeah, you always ask good questions. It's just I literally do not have the answers for you. I know that it is important that we do get this project launched at some point. Obviously, Brad's invested money, and we do all want to not have that be a waste. And I'm not saying it's like going to be a waste that trying to save the server or anything, but like we want this project to succeed. We are trying very hard to have this project succeed. So, but in terms of like actual finances, I literally don't have answers for that. I know Brad was busy today, unfortunately. Yeah, I don't have any details for that in particular. I'm over here feeling like guilty and bad that I don't have answers for everything, but sometimes I just don't have the answers. Anxiety is fun, guys. All right. Question. Has the rank system been figured out yet? I assume you mean the custom ranks that we had as in like in tab menu. If we are going to continue doing custom ranks, they'll probably be the ones that we developed for the 1.20 change. We just didn't get very long to utilize them. I don't foresee us having to like remake them all over again. But the amounts that they all cost may be adjusted. And because we might not have like all the plugins or might have different plugins, some of the perks may be adjusted. We'll definitely keep you guys up to date on those as we get information on what we're... When I say get information, I mean like get information like together and ready for release, just to be clear. So when we have more information to share, that's the difference. I'm going to apologize that I've been a little scatterbrained this like whole meeting. I have the flu. I'm getting better. I'm getting better. But the brain does not seem to be all here right now, at least with the words. Anytime I'm sick, the first thing that seems to shut down is my ability to stop myself from babbling. Which means I am just a delight for the rest of my family. Oh, you should have heard me coughing before the stream started early. Okay. So yeah, the rank system, I feel like it's fairly likely we'll be keeping the new ones that we had made before, but certain perks and the price points of them may get adjusted in different directions. So we'll definitely keep you guys up to date. Pengu, I said it takes away my ability to stop myself from babbling, not that it takes away my ability to stop myself from talking. That doesn't exist. The ability to stop myself from talking does not exist. It's just usually I'm slightly more coherent. Question. Any spoilers on the story? Details. The tearjerker moments always mean it's a good story. So, The real answer to this question is you're going to have to wait and see, because why would I spoil all the moments and potential cliffhangers that I want you guys to experience? However, I can tell you, for anybody who enjoys things like Baldur's Gate and D&D and fantasy stories, there's definitely a lot of inspiration from things like that. I may or may not have stolen some plot points directly from my own D&D campaign. God, no. Bad architect. I will say I do intend to have the story make people feel good or bad, you know. I'm not against that, but like I personally love like stories and games and things like that where there's like moral dilemmas where you're not really sure if what you're doing is the right thing either. I love stories like that. So just a little spoilers there. I feel like there may be the potential to give teeny little spoilers here and there upcoming in the future as to what may be in the first chapter. I do not want to spoil everything, though. And I'm not going to do it now, but I will say that I'm not against the idea of maybe giving you guys little sprinkles of spoilers soonish. Maybe next time. Also, just because my intention is to make you experience emotions does not mean there's anything wrong with you if you don't experience said emotion I was going for. Just know if you think the emotion you're supposed to experience is crying, then Visor was probably sobbing while writing some of it. And as a note, like I'm not directly trying to like steal plot points from like Baldur's Gate. I actually haven't played through the game yet. I just know that it's very similar in theme to a lot of the stuff that I have ideas for, and that the writing team is kind of going for at the moment. So. Okay, there is another question. Question. Will there be loot and dungeon systems? Any chance to increase odds of specific loot? Details. I remember we had gobs of loot to sort through before. So, there are intended to be, like, dungeons to a degree. The intention really is to have kind of story-related dungeons that you have to go through. I will also say that we are ultimately fairly concerned with the experience of people to play the story solo, as well as providing experiences for people to play it together. So it is likely that some of these dungeons will be soloable, but there may be other experiences that you do require assistance for. Just to be clear. As for the loot, we haven't kind of fully developed all of that yet. But I personally think we need less loot because you are right, there was tons. But we will still want kind of a varied range of things available for people, as there will be several classes to play as, so we want to make sure that each class will have the ability to gain certain things that they might need. There may also be certain quests that give everyone kind of like the same item. You know, things of that nature may occur. Like maybe everyone needs a certain type of weapon to take on a certain dungeon, so you get that through a quest. You know, things of that nature. Although I will say, if anything is personal opinion, if anything is like required for some sort of later plot point, I would probably try to have that somewhere in kind of the flavor text of said item, but it also depends on what we're able to do with the custom items. I'm also gonna say this with regards to Navy, your comment about loot drops that are tied to the history box. I'm not against that. I fully intend to have like a couple of Easter eggs somewhere in the story that may reference old Vox history, but I also don't want it to like completely just be understandable if you are an old player. Like, I want there to be some Easter eggs that people go like, oh, I know what that's about, but I also don't want it to be too confusing for people who may be new or may not have any clue.
Remember that the old Vox story isn't even fully known.
So I'm talking about
all released.
Yeah. But I'm also talking about like little tidbits of like Vox history versus like the old Vox story. So I'm talking like maybe there's a blacksmith whose name is Mark. Now people who understand the reference will know exactly what I'm talking about. People who don't, it's just a blacksmith named Mark. That sort of kind of thing. I also
that's kind of funny.
But you see my point. It's not really it's a reference to the people who get it, but it also works perfectly fine as a standalone if you don't understand the reference. You know, maybe the blacksmith has a little assistant named Tim, you know. Likes to hide in boxes. I don't know. But you get my point. It doesn't have to be like something super obvious to still be a little bit of a reference. I believe I've said this before, but somewhere, some point in the story, I intend to have a reference to Zombie. I just haven't decided where to do it yet. But I feel like everyone who knew him would enjoy a little bit of a reference that he's still around. But I also...
We still have his statue, too.
His statue and Crow statue will still be in Haven, because we do intend for Haven to still be part of the experience, so. We've said that multiple times, so. That's not a spoiler. Question. Stats. Not sure if this has been touched on before, but if things are leaning towards an RPG type settings, will there be things similar to strength, dex, and such, along with a way to increase them? So, not necessarily those exact kind of like stat points, but we do intend, there is a custom like class system that we were working on. Some people did get to experience that in both the beta server that we had, as well as it was functioning on Haven until it crashed multiple times. But, so, the point would be more that you select a class or utilize a class and build stats in that. I do not believe at this time that we were planning to have like a stats per person system. It's more stats in your class that you can like level your classes up. However, that could also be subject to change as we further develop things. I will say that we also likely will not have all the classes available right off the bat either. But the 4 that were like working already will probably be ready to go at the start. So at least those 4 should probably still be very similar, if not the same. Okay. Okay. I'm just double checking. We've answered all the questions that were sent in. All right. I'm going to give it 5 more minutes. If I haven't seen anybody either typing, or if you have questions, please post them in there. I'm doing 5 minutes because I know yes, I know, but I'm saying for other people as well. Basically, if you have a question, try to type it up and get it ready. I know there's the slow mode, so you usually have to wait, like, I think it's a minute before you can send again. So for those of you who've been asking a lot of questions, that's why I'm giving it like 5 minutes. If you have another question you can ask, please do so. And also, please remember, if you think of a question later, you can still ask. You don't have to wait for a meeting to ask a question. Most staff, if they don't know the answer to your question, should know who would be the appropriate person to ask. So, I'm suddenly craving a banana and I don't know why.
Do you have one?
We do, in fact, have bananas in my house, so I can definitely have one. I'm just like, I don't know why I'm craving one. I'm not gonna go get a banana while I'm on stream and eat it. I will wait until the meeting is over, and then I will get a banana.
All the architects are typing now.
No, stacking's not typing.
Okay, 2/3.
As an by the way, just so you guys know, when I've been singing the praises of our architects, they're doing great job. They can only build so fast. Question: do you expect players to be able to tame wildlife, as there is a lot of lands outside the city and possible villages? I imagine some might like to ride horses or have a dog to help them against skeleton hordes. Not sure, honestly. I don't think I'm not sure if we'll have to balance like a regular system or like a custom pet or mount system, and this is also tying into Allie's question about pets coming back. As I mentioned earlier, not entirely sure what we're planning to do via like custom mounts and custom pets. I'm not sure if we really want people to just be able to, get bones and have their own giant dog pack, just because that could quite literally unbalance things like the dungeons and such to probably a very negative degree. So I feel like we might not allow people to tame regular old wildlife, but if that is kind of like, if there's a balance there of like you can't tame regular wildlife, I feel like it would be reasonable for us to come to find a like custom pet pet or custom mount plugin that would accommodate the ability to have like a wolf or something, especially for any class where that might feel like appropriate. But I do believe that it might be possible to do like summons, the ability that everyone wants, like a cute little puppy or a cute little cat or a giant griffin walking next to them. A moose pet for our Canadians, you know. If Jin gets his way, I'm sure there'll be a realistic looking tarantula just to terrify me, or a bat to annoy me. Look, I was working my way up to suggesting a moose pet, but I'm sorry, the hamster pet took precedence. I need my little space hamster back, alright? Don't think I don't want pets, because I want my little space hamster back. Okay. I'm going to kind of consider those two questions answered together. Question. Sorry if asked, are the explorable areas going to be people's own places still, or will there be a communal open map type of thing like the previous maps have been? Alright. We have answered this. I'm going to answer it again, because this is pretty much like the most common question we keep getting asked anyway, so I'm not against answering it again. No. The adventure map is intended to be an adventure, story, and RPG style setting where there are not people's builds scattered all over the place. There are not anything not related to the story or that's part of like the exploration experience will not be on the adventure map. We have talked about having separate contained player worlds that you can have like your own house, possibly maybe with other people and make a small little like community, but that also depends on what the plugins are capable of doing, and we are still exploring those options. So no, there is not currently, at this point, intended to be any sort of communal open map like previous Vox maps have been. There is the possibility, because we have had it brought up, that we might end up doing something like a resource map to kind of go along with those, but that is not something we have completely settled on, so I'm not going to promise anything. But the intention here, there we go, right word. The intention here is to have the RPG experience, the adventure exploration story, to be the main focus. Okay, I see that you're also asking questions in the meeting text, and since we're still on the topic, I'm gonna answer you, Harley. We can't do too many maps. It's part of what bogs everything down. The point of having like plugins that would have the self-contained player worlds is to give the people who want like a little house of their own the ability to still do that, even though our main focus is no longer on that complete sort of just survival map. We want to tell this story and the RPG focus. And this is probably going to be an unpopular opinion. But if you don't wish to experience the RPG style story, you don't have to. And there are other servers to have a survival multiplayer experience on. And I'm sorry to be that frank about it, but like it's true. There are other servers if that is ultimately what you're after, We're trying to kind of accommodate both, though. With the player worlds, the like separate player world, possibly allowing towns if we can. We want to if the plugins will allow it, to allow some sort of like group to be able to kind of combine their player world. But again, I'm still not sure if that's possible. We still want to let people have that experience, but this is a different focus. This is a different experience. This is a different story. It's not the old Vox, and we know that. But this is also what the community voted, that they would rather see this experience happen than to lose Vox completely, and that's kind of the situation we were in. We have to do something different, something drastic. It is unfortunately where we are at this moment, and I don't want you to leave, but if you're not interested in the direction that the server is going, that is completely your right and decision to not want to experience it. Like, I'm not going to try to force anybody, but this is the direction that Vox is going. And if that's not something that interests you, then that's okay. And we understand that. As for the kind of question kind of regarding how like the dungeons are intended to be, the way that the dungeons are going to work is also supposed to kind of shift slightly. The current, I'm going to tell you guys like the current plan, but again, this is still potentially subject to adjust as needed. The current plan is that the dungeons, as you guys know them, won't exactly be the same. Dungeons themselves will be potentially smaller things. They may be built directly into the map. They may require a transportation. It kind of depends on what the size or what the function of the dungeon is. But there's also intended to be kind of a larger dungeon, quote-unquote, experience that will be more kind of the raid style from Final Fantasy. Similar in that kind of vein. So on the side, I've been referring to them in my head as like dungeons versus raids, but I'm not sure if that's the exact name we'll be going with either. But those larger ones are intended to need a party to go through. So you need more than just yourself to go through. Whereas we also want to balance the ability for players to go through the story by themselves if that's what they want. But there may still be a few story points or plot points where you have to go through one of the experiences that require more players to kind of group together. We also want to try to come up with ways to kind of encourage players to help others go through those experiences, if they've already done them. I'm not promising anything, but we're trying to come up with different ways of how to make this, happen and enjoyable for everyone and enjoyable to do more than once. So there's a lot of... The problem really at this point is we have a lot of different ideas, and trying to get everything kind of melded and meshed together into one cohesive project that actually fully works and functions is just again, a juggling act, like I mentioned earlier. So
community feedback is always open. We're always open for. Just remember.
Yes, we do have the suggestions forum too. So if you guys have any particular things you think would be interesting to see, drop them. I can't promise that we'll be incorporating everything, but yeah, like if you've got ideas on how you think things might be able to be done or things you'd like to see, All right. Will manually summoning certain bosses return? Not really sure, actually. I think that could be an interesting way to accommodate that experience. Like I said, like I was literally just talking about how to make certain things repeatable. So it might be something along those lines. Maybe you can... There may be dungeons that you can run like repeatable. I'm not sure if we're going to have like an arena style with like summonable bosses again, but it is something we could do, I believe. So definitely something to consider and think about. I do know that, and I know we've mentioned this a little bit, Brad does still want us to have some sort of events every so often. So potentially seasonally, or depending on how we tell the story, that we still want there to be kind of events that happen every so often. And I feel like summonable bosses for certain events might be something that would be more interesting. You might have to wait a while for them to come back around, but that might be a way to kind of incorporate the summonable bosses again without completely like breaking the story, or having people, grind to get some super really cool weapon that'll just make the story a breeze, Look, Harvest in the way, a lot of the events in the way that they functioned will probably not be the same thing, but games like Final Fantasy, I reference this a lot, but Final Fantasy is a giant inspiration, and I've actually played it, so I know what I'm... I like referencing things I actually know what I'm talking about with. Go figure. But Final Fantasy has events where, like, you go through some, like, quest lines and stuff like that, and it's like a seasonally available type of thing, and you get some, like, seasonal content, and seasonal gear and stuff like that, but it's not necessarily completely game-breaking no matter where you are in the story. So things of that nature, that kind of a way of doing an event is probably where it'd be leaning to do events in the future. But like a summonable boss people can go fight kind of also reminds me of our old like Easter event, where you'd have the killer rabbit and you could go summon them, or the lunar bosses. We can incorporate certain things into that. I would love to see us do something with the Forsaken. The Forsaken boss that we had, and we did not get to actually do much with. I would love to see him in our story somewhere.
The one that we spoilered and
yeah, we did a video. We showed him off at the launch of the first Netherite. I want to do something with him.
And the custom dragon.
I already have ways to put him in. I have ideas for how we could put dragons in. Alright, I got ideas, guys. I got ideas. Problem is, I have too many ideas in my head and not enough written down. So I need to work on doing that so the CMs can help me get all these ideas together. But yeah, so...
The questions channel's closed, by the way.
Okay, good. I was about to suggest that. Alright, so, yeah, Navy, I believe that was like a bug with the keybinds having to be redone. I'm not entirely sure. It could have also been like a plugin interaction, but I'm not sure on that, but I do believe it was some sort of bug. Hopefully we can get that, sorted. I seem to remember Fred was working on that, but I don't remember the outcome. But it's also been a little bit of time, and I have gone through some personal and tragedies and shit this... Ooh, I swore. This year already. Yeah, it's been a time for everybody, so... hopefully you guys are feeling good about the direction that we are going. I hope that some of this information has at least helped you guys get some more feedback and a better idea of the direction we're going. I do intend for us to have another community meeting next month, and hopefully I will have some more information to share with you guys by then. But thank you all for... I'm going to wrap it up, so thank you guys for coming to the community meeting. and for listening and asking questions. And we definitely look forward to seeing you guys. I would like to reiterate a few points, that being you shouldn't worry about losing all your stuff on the current survival map that's up for fun. You should just enjoy and have fun while we wait for the RPG project to be done. If you have any interest in helping with the project as it is, or please take a look at the staff roles and apply for anything that interests you. We do have a particular need for architects and, as always, GMs, but if you're interested in any department, please feel free to apply. You can make an application in the Discord itself. The option is still available on Reddit, but I will be honest, we check that less frequently than we do the Discord. So Discord would be a better shot, but I will also, I do regularly check the Reddit. It's just easier to check Discord, to be honest. And as always, if you guys have any suggestions, don't be afraid to drop them in the suggestions forum. And if you have any subsequent questions, you may always ask in the Discord, ask a staff member, and someone should know who to direct you to for the correct answer, even if they themselves do not know the answer. So, as a general note, please make sure to take care of yourself. Your mental, physical, and emotional health are always, always, always more important than a video game, even a video game we all love. So, thank you guys for coming, and you have a wonderful, wonderful evening, please.
Take care.
And YouTube. Thank you guys for coming, and we'll see you next month. Anytime now. My thing is not working. Okay, well, okay, bye.